Fridays, I've always done my.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
How's everybody doing?
Super.
Fantastic. Anybody want to start us out with a success story before we get started? And wait for some people to come on.
The World Cup finals on Sunday.
World Cup finals. Yeah, who are you rooting for?
I'm rooting for a great game. I don't care who wins.
Exactly.
So, Jason,
it's been great in the US, all this soccer camaraderie.
I'm predicting the score will be 14-7.
No.
What?
What are you watching?
Okay, that ended this meeting. I appreciate everyone coming. Everyone have a nice day. I think it's going to be 3-1 Spain. That's my prediction.
Okay. How about
I'm
real
rooting for
estate?
the referee because I was a professional official years ago. Actually, I know the husband of the American female referee that officiated this year. So he was a referee years ago too.
Well, anybody have any real estate success stories? This is very appropriate. You have to be very specific at what you ask, Jason.
I'm sorry. I'll shut up now.
Well, Rob, I can
Got a
talk
closing on Zillow, hallelujah, with the most delightful clients.
Beth, can you print this out for me?
I cannot.
All right, and how long did it take you to convert that one?
A month.
That's pretty darn impressive.
Cash buyers.
Okay, fantastic. And so that's why everybody's here, Adona. Not enough success.
I have a success.
All right, we have a success story here.
Here, I'll move over into the camera. I'm here with Rob. I did an open house and it was very well attended, but we got I got 3 listing opportunities out of this open house.
Wow.
2 people came from the neighborhood who want to upgrade their houses or change houses. And so the opportunity is to sell them houses, list their houses. And then there were so many cars in the driveway. Another gal stopped by and said, "Hey, I saw all the cars and I wanted to meet the agent, and my friend is selling her house. So I thought I'd come in and meet you and see if you're the right, see if you seem like the right agent." So
Beth,
I'm working.
can you hold on one second? Rob, can you make me a co-host?
I muted her. I muted.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead.
Where should I start?
No. I think you're saying about like
3 buyers. Opportunities from one open house. That's it.
Well, you were going in and out. I think your Wi-Fi is not stable.
Here the past few days.
Rob, you seem to be frozen.
He's we don't know what happened. I'm in the same room as him. Are you on the Wi-Fi? Okay. All right, I'm going to mute because otherwise it'll conflict with his.
Is anybody not hearing anything come through, or am I the only one?
We're just waiting for Rob to be back.
Yeah, he's not talking. I will
Cool, we can talk about
in a minute.
soccer.
I'll use my computer.
Recording in progress.
He's back.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So anyway, I just said my success was getting to visit 5 of our offices down here in Florida. It was great. And I want to talk about a very practical thing, and this is your opportunity if you ever have conversation anxiety, whatever your biggest gotchas are, whatever your anxiety is when you go on an appointment, I want you to put it out here, and we're going to talk about exactly how to address those questions, concerns, anxiety, and how to turn that nervousness in your stomach into a confidence that will attract business to you. All right. Earlier on in my career, I was always worried about, for example, newer in the business, going out with an agent, especially a new agent. Somebody says, "Oh, how much business have you done in my area?" right? And if you're new in the business, you need to know how you're going to answer that question, correct? In these markets we're in now, sometimes, markets may be, flat or even declining. Inventory may be building up. Sellers may have unrealistic expectations. Buyers might still not have come around to, executing buyer agreements. So what are some of the concerns that you have when you get these type of questions? And I want to give you tools on exactly how to answer those. And the fundamentals for today is the worst time to think about what you're going to say is right before you say it, right? And we all are masters at winging it and getting out of a straitjacket in real estate. But it's so much easier if you just know exactly how you're going to answer something before you get the question. When you look around here at everybody on this call, I can't see one person that's not, the best of the best at being able to do business once they have it. The challenge is, how do we get more business, and how do we set up the business to be a better experience? And both of those answers are communication. If we can master communication, we can get clients to price homes better, compensate us more fairly, do all the things that become challenges, right? So here's your opportunity. Like, what are your, biggest concerns or biggest, most difficult questions that you get that clients, provide to you and you struggle with? All right, session's done. Everybody on the leadership team, you've done a great job.
I have a listing appointment on Sunday, and they told me prior to even coming, this is what I want to list my house at. So, and I want you to do a pocket listing, and the price she's given me is already $75,000 higher than any other property in the community. But on the phone, she gave me all this criteria, which I totally agreed to, just to get my foot in the door. And now Sunday, when we go, that's when all of this.
And is it 75,000 off on a 3 million or on a 300,000?
On a 600,000.
Okay. So, esteemed colleagues, like, how do you approach that appointment? Because I have my thoughts, and I'm going to share them regardless. So
I have my game plan in my mind, but let's see what you come up with.
Well, no, I want to get a little bit more engagement here. If I have to pull it out of you, I want to get some. So, anybody have Sergio? How about you, sir? In that set of facts, what do? You have to unmute yourself, Sergio. You have to hit the unmute button. This is the last time Sergio is joining because I called on him.
Okay.
So what do you do when somebody says, and Terry, I appreciate when somebody says that this is what I want to get for my house, because now I know how to prepare for it. But Sergio, how would you do it?
I appreciate you tell me that, and is reasonable that you think that way. You want to put the most amount of the money in your pocket at the end. Nowadays, the market has a little bit shift. It's not like the market for 2 years ago. If it was that time, I would list your house that high, but I don't control the market. You know what I mean? I analyze the market. I think your house is the price that you want for your house is a little bit over the price. Is important to price correctly, but at the end of the game, your decision, are you really want to sell your house? And see what they answer and go from there.
All right. So I would say, and Sergio, thank you for sharing. And you are extremely logical and you make all the sense in the world. But sometimes, like a customer like Terry's has it in their head, right? And it's just there, right? This is what we want. So here's the magic words that I would use, Terry. I would say, Terry, has anyone taken the time to share with you the 3 distinct pricing strategies that are available to you to maximize the equity in your home? Now, if I asked 100 sellers, has anyone taken the time to share with you the 3 distinct strategies you have at your disposal to maximize the equity in their home? How many people would say, oh, yeah, the other agent discussed that with me? Does anybody think that happens, or you think I would be unique?
That'd be unique.
Right? And is that authentic, right? Is that a good strategy? And then I say, hey, Terry, I can appreciate you wanting to put it on at 675. I'm going to give you, 3 scenarios here. And then once we review those scenarios, you can tell me what resonates with you when we decide to launch your home, right? Because
what's even better is she said, oh, by the way, I had my real estate license 20 years ago. I'm like, oh, okay, good.
yeah. No, but I think, everybody should write this down, and many of you have heard this many times. MMFI, make me feel important, make me feel heard, right? So you want to make your prospective client or your client feel important. And when you say, has anyone taken the time to share with you the 3 distinct strategies you have available to you to maximize the equity in your home, you are hitting it right on the head, right? One strategy is to price it like you're thinking. Another strategy is to price it at the perceived market value, which is what Sergio was talking about, right? When you talk about here's where the market is, the market shifted, this is where it is. And I'm giving everybody cover by using the term perceived market value, because in the industry, we talk about the market value for your home, almost like we know what the market value is, like it's a scan item on the shelf, right? The market value for your home is 605,000 or 600. But we really don't know what the market value is until we do what? We put it on the market, right?
Right.
And the way that we put it on the market influences the price that you get. It's not determined, correct? And Terry, would be, and I know clients come in there and they're like, I don't want to do this. I need to get this price for it. Serbia and I had one where that lady wanted $2 million for it, right? Or she wanted to list it for more than that, and you sent it out, and after you sent it out, she said, no, I don't want to list it at 2. I want to list it auction style at 18488, right? So it's not, the sellers think they have something in their head, and the buyers as well, and I'm going to talk about that. But the way that we engage them will help them to make a better decision, and that's the whole purpose of today's session. Is you all have the knowledge, right? You all can figure out market value or perceived market value better than me in your market every day. But yet sometimes the Terrys of the world who have more than 5 years experience in the business, right? Terry, you have more than 5 years, correct?
Oh, yeah. Multiply that by 4.
So Terry has a lot of experience selling houses in that price range and higher. Yet I think, you authentically were like frustrated because you believe that she wants you to list it at $75,000 more. I believe that the door has just been opened, and I'm going to use the term, has anyone taken the time to share with you the 3 distinct strategies you have available to you when you put your house on the market, right? Nobody's doing that. And then you just need to spend a little bit of time getting comfortable demonstrating the 3 strategies. And in virtually every market, and there may be some high end or low volume markets where there's only one sale every 6 months, in the boonies of your town. But other than that, if there are sales occurring, okay, the numbers always, and I use the term always, favor the ones that sell quickly, because days on market always impair the value of your house, right? Do you think a seller realizes that days on market has a significant impairment on the value of their home?
Yes and no.
Yes and no, right? I mean, they probably know if they thought about it, but or do you think they're more like this?
We're not in any hurry as long as we get our price.
And see, like I fold my arms. I can wait for the perfect buyer. I'm in no hurry. I want to get my price, right? And that's been going on for years. Okay, and the seller thinks that if I sell it quickly, maybe I left money on the table. If I waited around, maybe a better buyer would come along, right? But that's a fallacy. That's not true. And the only way that gets conveyed is through communication and case studies, right? And when you say, would it be helpful for you, Terry, if I shared with you 3, let's just say that it was in Coral Springs. The strategy for other home sellers in Coral Springs who use these three different strategies in your neighborhood, right? Because if you give them like a national number, like, yeah, that makes sense, but that doesn't work in Parkland, or that doesn't work in Coral Springs, right? Everybody thinks that way. This market is unique. So would it be helpful if I shared with you how other sellers have fared using these three strategies in Coral Springs? I've never had somebody say no, right? And when you share it to them and you say, hey, which one of these three strategies do you think would be right for you and your family to maximize the equity in your home, right? Who uses the term maximize your equity during a listing presentation or a listing appointment? Who hasn't been using it before today? Who hasn't been using the term maximize your equity? Raise your hand if you're on camera. Who's never going to raise their hand? Thanks for being honest there. But I think you should use the term maximize your equity, right? Because that's what we're really there to do, right? Figuring out how we can get them the highest possible price, maximize the equity in their home. So anyway, Terry, I want to thank you because like these are the objections that we get all the time, right? And
Right.
Does anybody get like commission objections when you go on listing appointments?
Always.
Always. Jason, you get them a lot or no?
I wouldn't say a lot. I get them enough that I've practiced them.
Okay.
I have a question about that
Go ahead.
because she's pretty insistent on a pocket listing, which in my mind is that she basically wants me to sell a house, so she only has to pay one commission. In this day and age, with buyers having to sign the buyer broker agreement, I will probably piss everybody off in my neighborhood, in my area, by offering a minimal commission to the selling agent. But the buyers are so sophisticated. I know buyers are knocking on doors that they see on Zillow, asking if they have open listings or if the sellers can sell it themselves. So I'm considering doing that at the risk of annoying all my fellow agents, offering a $1,000 commission. But if they really want the house, then their buyer will make up the rest of whatever commission that they signed on the buyer broker agreement. What's your take on that?
So my conversation would be that, Terry, it's been my experience that if we advertise and we promote this property to the entire real estate community, that we will create more competition and almost guaranteed get you a higher price. And if you're concerned about paying the buyer side commission, when somebody asks if we're compensating, we can say we'll review the commission request with the offer and we'll get back to you. We're open-minded, right? And if she doesn't like the offer, she can say, well, I'm not gonna pay that commission. And then her risk is that she loses a qualified buyer, right? So all these things and this is almost perfect for today, Terry, where this person told you in advance all the objections that you're going to have to overcome. Mm-hmm. I appreciate that because we can now, anticipate and formulate our language. And for me, like if you had an opportunity to sell somebody's house and they told you to do something that was incredibly stupid, that was going to cost them a lot of money, I probably would try 5 to 7 times to convince them to do it better, even if it meant that I might not double end it, right? Because I don't want to see somebody get $50,000 less because they're saving $10,000 on commission and getting 50 less on the purchase price. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. And just like with Serby and her client, and this happens all the time, the client says one thing, but they say that because it's from a position of partial ignorance or ignorance, right? They have something in their mind. They think, hey, if I can save 2% or 3% on the sale of my house, that's $20,000 or $15,000. But they don't realize that they're going to limit the audience and the number of people who are willing to buy it. And my job is to educate them on that. And would any of us selling our own house opt to do a private listing and not syndicate it, try to sell it themselves? No, right?
But if you offer a minimal commission, I mean, if you offer something, it's still going to be on the MLS. They're still getting the same amount of exposure.
Right. So I mean, that's not, if you don't put it on the MLS, that's almost, if you don't,
it has to go on the MLS.
Right. But you can put on the MLS and say, I'm not offering compensation. That's possible.
That's possible too.
Well, no. But I'm saying you don't put it in the MLS, but when somebody calls and say, we're not, you have to get the pay from your buyer. That's a strategy, right? And that's what you can tell your client that, or you can say, hey, if somebody says, I'll give you, $650 with no commission, and somebody else says, I'll give you $700, you pay me 3%. I just want to understand, Terry, are you advising me that we would turn away $29,000 to save $21,000? I'm just curious. Correct?
Correct.
But this is why I exist, because I know that sellers have things in their mind. But
is that why you exist?
Well, I exist to help you. That's what, because
the fact that you're fathering 5 kids have nothing to do with it.
I love what I do, and I love to try to break down these perceived objections that people have, Terry, and give you strategies to get them. Give you strategies and language to address them, right? Because you might take them at their word and say, if I don't list it for $675,000 more than it's worth, then I'm not getting the listing because that's what the woman told me, right? But when you go out there and you say, hey, has anyone taken the time to share with you the 3 options that you have available to you to maximize your equity? And then when you show them those options and you say, which one works for you? I would bet you if you do a better than average job at communicating that they're going to move away from the 675. Does anybody disagree with me on that? And there's 2% of the people that are just so dang stubborn that they're not going to do it, and that's okay because you just go next, or you might tolerate it to try to make a fee. But my inclination would be to say next. And so you have the overpricing and you have the not wanting to pay commission all built in one here, Terry. This is like the perfect case study, right? And then I would print up before you go out there, Terry. I would print up your list to sale ratio, and I would print up the number for the county or the number for the city that you're in or the number for the price range that you're in, and I would take whichever one is more favorable. And I'd say, hey, my list to sale ratio is 99.2%, and my average days on market is 41. In the entire county, the list to sale price is 96.4. Average days on market are 104. So I sell it, 59% faster, and I get 4.2% more, whatever that number is, for my sellers. So if we decided to work. So I'm making them feel good. I'm making them feel important, and I'm taking price away from the conversation. I'm minimizing that. Does that make sense? Because they don't know how good you are, right? And when you tell them how good you are, it kind of can come across the wrong way. But if you show them, right, you give them data. Hey, here's my data. Here's your data. Hey, here's some people that tried it doing it your way, Terry, and here's some people that tried it doing it this way. Here's how this person landed. Here's how that person landed. This is another one, write down, if we decided to work together, which strategy works for you, right? If we decided to work together, because it's a mutual choice, right? A contract is something that's entered into freely from both people's sides. So you have the option to say, I'm not the right person for you, right? Yes, Terry?
Yeah, that's hard to get out of my mouth. I'm not the right person for you.
Well, let me ask you this, Terry. Have you ever taken a listing that you had a bad feeling about early on?
Sure.
That didn't go well?
It actually oftentimes goes better than I expected it to. Okay. So I've been lucky that way. And I mean,
so let me get into this. I know integrity is the cornerstone of your business. So if somebody says, Terry, I I have these two things that I want to hide to a buyer. And I don't want to disclose it.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, no, that'll never fly.
So there you go. There's your I won't work with you. Okay. It's integrity. So if somebody lacks integrity, asks you to do something that lacks integrity or is illegal, you're walking away because that's not who we are, right? So therefore it is a decision, right? So if we do decide to work together, and there's your line in the sand, integrity. Okay.
Right.
So when you do say it that way, it really levels the playing field, right?
Right.
And language does really matter, right? So we talked about like pricing. We talked about the commission. Other sales objectives that you have, on a listing appointment. Anybody have any other anxieties, questions that you get that you're not comfortable with?
I have a friend's parents who live in a certain neighborhood, and I just heard a little buzz from them that they'll probably use someone who's familiar with that neighborhood. I mean, it's just 5 miles from my neighborhood. They somehow think that the realtors that they see signs in that neighborhood are the ones that know that neighborhood.
That's a good objection. That's a common one.
Yeah, so it's like, what's the market share in your neighborhood type of thing, right? Now, do you think, Nancy, you're going to get an opportunity to get an appointment, or do you think you're not even going to get in the game?
It's possible. It's possible. I think I need to communicate something to let them know that what we provide will be just as valuable as any other realtor can provide.
Or more valuable. How's that?
Hey, okay, I'll go for that.
Mm-hmm. And do you know, I guess I personally would exploit all the tools I have at my resource with both statistics and conversation, right? And who, in that scenario, who would want to go first and who would want to go last?
What do you mean?
So if they told you I'm interviewing, I'm interviewing Lori Caruso in the Peaks in Rockaway, who has probably 30 to 50% market share. Should I interview her first, or would you like to come first? Where would you want to be?
Last.
You want to be last? Who wants to be the last person going in?
I do.
And who wants to be the first person going in?
I'm kind of leaning first.
Yeah, I would lean heavily into first.
Why?
Because sometimes people say one thing like, hey, I'm going to interview two, then I'm going to decide. But you go there and you say, hey, if we decide to work together, which strategy would you like to use? They, I like this one, right? Then you're okay, the next step is, right? And you walk out the door. But if you're like, go through the whole process, and then you say, oh, I know you wanted to interview Beth before you made your final decision, then you just unsold yourself, right?
Good decision, by the way.
You would just have unsold yourself from a piece of business. So I don't know. Who feels strongly about going last?
I do.
Okay, and I think, Terry, that's indicative of the fact that you believe that they're going to do 2 appointments. But you might come across in your career where somebody says, I'm going to interview 2, and the first person went out there and they say, oh, you know what, we made our decision, Terry. We don't need to see you. Could happen, right?
I suppose, yes.
I mean, you can still have follow-up where you're in touch with them. You're taking them some additional data information. You're giving them some reports, whatever. You can always make sure you're the last person they talk to.
Right. But if they said you want to go first or second, I'm always going first, in my opinion.
Too, but I want to make sure that I'm the last person they talk to also.
So, and how do you deal with if they have another, hey, you know what? My niece is getting her license. I really want to see if I can give her a shot. Now, what message does that send to you other than like you're a little bit frustrated? And then how do you communicate it without being offensive? How's that?
It's all in how you react. If you understand how to be cool and collective and know how to articulate your value, you know that you're not going to go, Terry, and get your knee replaced from a doctor that just came out of medical school. So would you want your niece to make a commission and learn on you and maybe put you in jeopardy of a lawsuit or a problem. No, you want my 20 plus years of experience to guide you through this process and get to the closing table.
I've actually offered to give them a referral.
Right, that's what I think.
But that,
Yeah, that way they
but
don't
many,
feel like
many
they're cut
times,
out.
Janet,
Mhm.
many times it's not just about the family member making a commission. It's about the family member learning through the process and getting the experience is what
Oh,
a
I
lot
get
of
that.
families
Yeah,
do.
but you can use your verbiage and then add this in, kind of like the frosting on the cake, and
Yeah,
saying,
no,
you know,
I've done that.
like,
I know exactly what you're saying. I've done that. I said we can co-list it. You can coach her, and you know she can learn through the process. I get that for sure. You know, hearing about the first part, I'll chime in. You know, if I'm representing a buyer, Terry, that's looking at that listing, and you have that on the table, and they're really interested, and I have to tell my buyer, hey, listen, you are going to love this property, but on the buyer broker agreement you sign, it says you will pay the difference of whatever the seller is not going to cover in 3%. Now, if that ever happens over here, it's typically 0.5%, maybe 1%. But if they need to now come up with $21,000, I don't feel like that's right. And they're not, you know, why is it up? Why do they need to do that? It was, you did not sell your value enough to tell them like they need to work with a buyer's broker. The buyer's broker is bringing them the person that's going to get them on to their next chapter. So it's like you're limiting yourself, because I would say a ton of buyers agents are going to say, wait a second, you're not paying even 2%. You know, I don't have any listings that I take that don't offer the buyer's agent 3%. So we don't have to go through this. But I think it's all in how you speak to the client. And then once they realize that it's in their best interest to offer a buyer's agent the commission that they're due, then they understand it, and it's not a conversation any longer.
When you're working with buyers, do you call up every listing agent that you're going to show and ask what percentage they're giving in advance?
Nope.
No, it's not necessary. First of all,
Exactly.
you're putting what you're deserving, which has always been the same thing, in your offer, right? When I do talk to the listing agents, it's typically once I have a better feeling that my buyer is really interested in that home versus the other 5 that we're seeing. But typically I know a lot of the agents that have the listings that I'm showing, and to have that report in advance is always great. But you know, I'm definitely not submitting an offer without having a conversation, because I can get a lot of information and be more prepared with a stronger offer. You know, communication's everything.
So
I don't do that. I just submit my offer with the commission I expect.
and then you negotiate for it, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know. So we kind of got off a little bit here from the, you know, I have a niece, or maybe it would be, you know, before I hire you, I want to talk to the agent that sold me the property, right? There may be these other objections that come up during a listing opportunity. And what I'm going to tell you is, if you take a step back, mentally take a step back from the situation, if they were listing the property with their niece, would you be there?
No.
You wouldn't be there, right? If they were intending to list the property with their niece or their former agent, you would not be there, right? So this is just a mind game for you, because you just need to go and demonstrate the value that you have, right? And you know, it's a really fine line is to not be incredibly insulting to people who don't know what they're doing in the business, right? Because that often doesn't make us look better, kind of makes us look worse, right? But maybe if you said, most agents with less than a year in the business sell properties for significantly less because of their lack of experience than do experienced agents. And I might even, do a quick, chat GBT or Google and say, hey, agents with 20 years in experience versus agents with less than a year, what's the fall through rate? And I'm sure it's significantly higher, right? And I might just ask them questions. Hey, are you familiar with, the fall through rate for first year agents on real estate transactions? And it's probably because they're learning on their first couple of clients. If we decided to work together, I pride myself on making sure that, not only do we get the best offer, accept it, and negotiate it, but I protect you from inspection items and make sure that the other side performs. Is that important to you, right?
Exactly.
Because it would be incredibly stressful for somebody to think they're moving and then 2 weeks before closing find out that they can't perform on their mortgage, or there's something going south, correct? So I mean, these are all things I think that are part of the business. And when they say that they want to talk to their former agent, or they want to talk to their niece or somebody, my best friend's getting their real estate license. Okay. I would probably just continue with my value proposition and politely just identify why, somebody newly licensed is probably not going to be in their best interest, selling, maximizing the value or the equity in their home. The timing issue, like we need time to think about it, or we're not ready to put it on. Is that something that you see once you go out into appointments, or not that much?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I've encountered that.
So, and what's the hey, I'm thinking about doing it in 3 months? And like, how far out are they generally saying?
People think that if they wait, the market's going to get better. That maybe the time isn't right yet to list, and they should wait, trying to time the market.
Right.
All right. And Nicole, I'll get to you after this. Who has a good answer for that?
No time like the present.
I guess it would depend on, where you're at during the season. Like if it's the summertime, then you want to explain to them some of the market trends of it being one of the busiest seasons to actually list. And then if it's in a slower season, say November or December, then you'd want to explain to them the market conditions of listing in November and December, where you do have buyers out looking, but our inventory is actually less. So it's more likely that your house will sell and will get you'll get the most for your house because those buyers still are out there looking, and we don't have as much inventory.
Did anybody use some of the resources we get from like the associations about like inventory by month and things of that nature, where you can tell a story around it?
Yeah, June's increased to 2.5 compared to previous years. Yes.
Right. So like you can pull data out, and I can tell a story of, hey, Sierra, I understand why you might want to put it on in the spring, but in the spring in Ponte Vedra or whatever the community is, there's normally 79 to 121 on, and around Thanksgiving there's generally about 25, and here's the number of sales that happen in this month. So we might be able to exploit the opportunity to be up against less inventory with still buying activity.
It also depends what their motivation is to sell. If they want to buy something, I think they get less than they had hoped when they sell. But on the other hand, they're getting a better deal on what they buy. So it does kind of, if the cost of waiting can be very high. I mean, we all have examples of people that said they were going to wait and prices came down even further. So they should have listed it when they were first thinking about it.
Yep. So the cost of waiting. Nicole, you raised your hand for something. I didn't make you forget what you raised your hand for.
No, I can't forget. So I thought it might be something that I could chime in with. Now, this is the other side. I just had this situation come up as I was on the call with an agent. He's the listing agent. He has a potential buyer, cash buyer, and this particular buyer has said that he not only does not want to sign a BBA or any sort of agreement with the brokerage. He noted NAR's settlement, and that he's been digging, and to the point where now he's lawyered up and said, I would like to work with an attorney on this. I do not want your services. I basically, just need you to open the door. So I just, I'm navigating it as a cash buyer. He's contacted the listing agent directly. He doesn't want buyer representation. I know the value that being a transaction broker, and just in Florida, you can manage both sides of the transaction as a transaction broker. Your duties do change. But I think my concern is that, once you get into it, you are answering questions. You're acting more than if you say, unrepresented buyer, which we don't have a form for that. We would still want him to sign at least some sort of pre-touring agreement to outline the relationship so that we're doing what we need to do from the brokerage side. But just kind of wondering how you guys would handle this. Like I said, I was probably going to recommend a pre-touring agreement, but also offer, to let this person know, look, this is an attorney does there's certain duties they perform, but the experience of this particular agent has 30 years of experience. And there's more than just opening doors that we do. There'll be
So Nicole, our agent, we have the listing on this particular property, and
we have
somebody
a
comes and
listing where
says,
prospective cash buyer reached out directly to the listing agent and specifically does not want it have a buyer's agent. And he's retained an attorney. He believes the attorney will handle that side of the transaction. And he would be viewing the property as an unrepresented buyer.
So do we put into our listing agreement anything about unrepresented buyer, or have that discussion on the
listing side?
Yeah.
Customary practice, probably don't get into that. Maybe depending on the agent, I would say.
Jason, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, Jason here, he's one of my agents. Like, what would you do? Do you?
Well, so the listing, and I'm going to assume that he has a total listing commission and he's allowed to offer to the other party. But since there is no other party, I can show my own listing without a listing or without a BBA, a showing agreement. I would probably, if he's adamant about hiring an attorney, I would have him sign a no brokerage relationship. So he is clear that we are not providing him services at his request. Show him the property and then have the attorney draft the agreement. But the attorney's not entitled to any of the commission already preset. That's between him and his attorney.
Sure. And I don't think that was, really the what he's planning on doing as far as like compensating the attorney with the compensation that's being offered. And he has been clear about that there is a compensation offered for that, and kind of defining roles. I think, this particular, in every listing's different. This one has existing tenants, unpaid assessments, and it's a little bit complex. So I think, and also there's furniture, right? So I think it's important that we should clearly articulate the value. This is what I was writing to the agent, that we bring while protecting our brokerage and creating the best possible experience for the buyer. But yeah, I just would love to hear maybe how you guys would communicate that, maybe not to your agents, but to your, to this potential buyer. It's a higher price point listing. We obviously we want to benefit the buyer and find, or the seller, and find them a buyer, make everybody happy.
A couple of questions for you, Nicole. Do your listings overwhelmingly have like what a buyer agent commission is listed in the agreement, or is it open-ended?
No, we always define, we pretty much always define it and offer, make sure that there's something on the table for someone to procure a buyer, bring a ready, willing buyer.
So what my intuition says that the buyer is believing that he's getting a better price because there's no buyer agency commission.
Right. He just wants to make sure he pays nothing. It's
Correct.
really
okay. No, fair enough. Right. So that's what I believe the buyer believes.
Yeah.
And then he also believes that the attorney is doing all the services that an agent would do, which is not true, because you have to open the door to do the inspection. You have to do there are certain activities that still need to be performed.
Precisely.
So, for example, if I had a 5% listing, 2.5, 2.5, or 3, 2, right? I would go to my my homeowner and say, hey, I am not going to represent this buyer, but I do need to do certain activities. And because I value our relationship, instead of paying 5%, 2.5%, 2.5%, I'm going to discount the buyer side, the fee of you're not saying you're representing the buyer, but the transaction management side for the buyer to 1.5%. So your total fee would only be 4%, thus making the the seller feel good about the transaction and letting the attorney feel like, hey, I saved you the commission that would have been paid, right?
So in our state, we're not going to pay an attorney. It's only like agent to agent.
No,
So
I understand that. No, what I'm saying to those,
agent's going to get 6%. Either way, it's just he wants to make sure that we're protected when we,
so, if the seller doesn't resist, right? Like if there is no agent on the transaction and you say I'm paying a buyer's agent 2.5%, are you still entitled to that 2.5% if the buyer is unrepresented?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we would get.
Well,
He's
depending
getting.
on how you wrote it up, but most likely yes.
I've read it.
Okay.
He would get the whole 6%. He's offering, down the middle 3% to buyer's agent if someone brings them along. So this would be, a win, and no discount really is needed. It's just more just the conversation with this buyer, because I feel like what's going to end up happening and what would be best for everybody involved is that the buyer has this agent actually, he's not just opening doors. We have to coordinate inspections and arrange that. There's going to be negotiations, and obviously with furniture and things like that. And the attorney it's kind of like a waste of money. He doesn't need to pay for an attorney. He can utilize the services here of this agent and still not come out of pocket for, as far as any sort of agency.
Hey, Nicole, honestly, I think you just answered your question. Honestly, it's like,
I have an answer. I just thought we would talk about it because I felt like it was like kind of,
Mr. Botter, you understand, and I want to make sure, that you understand when you go to the attorney that he's able to handle all of this, that he's going to coordinate with the title company, he's going to coordinate with the inspectors, he's going to coordinate with the repairs, because if you go that route, and we can do it this way where we don't represent you, if your attorney's not doing that, it puts you in a bind, and that might cost you more in the long run. But I can offer my services to do so.
Right.
Right.
I think you answered your own question.
I have, like I said, I have the answer. I just thought it would be something good that we could bring up and just say, these are the things that we deal with, right? Like, this is somebody who's obviously got somebody in his ear. He's also not from this state, so he's probably from an attorney state. So he doesn't have the knowledge, but he's coming at the transaction with, his fists up, and he doesn't want to be wrong.
Yeah. I think you kind of got this one figured out, and I want to take the last 8-9 minutes. I want to talk about a buyer perspective, if I may.
Yes.
Let me give you like a perspective of somebody who was in the industry, but not in the real estate industry. So I believed before I got involved in the brokerage side that if a buyer was coming to make an offer on, Nicole's listing, they're paying $500,000 with 20% down and a pre-approval from a reputable lender, and it didn't matter what agent presented that offer, what agent wrote it up, right? It's a 20% down, $500,000 offer. I couldn't be more wrong. Because right now, in an age where contracts aren't written completely, the math doesn't add up. They email it to you without even having a conversation, right? Buyers have no idea about what happens when an offer gets accepted or rejected. They just think that we're all vanilla, we're all the same, right? If you take a step back and you look at it, I really believe like a buyer, if they came into St. Augustine, Sierra wasn't there, they knew what house they wanted to buy, they might go to the next office and say, it doesn't make a difference, I'm just presenting my offer. And the seller's going to say, 500, I accept it or reject it or counter it. That's how I thought. But it's so different, right? you call, you have a conversation, you build a relationship, you make a case for your client, right? The buyers don't know that. And I think when you explain to them in the wrong way, we actually kind of come across looking worse. But we have to be able to differentiate and identify why it matters who you work with, right? It's critical. So when you talk about, buyer's agency and buyers not wanting to sign a BBA, right? Is that the buyers, reading too much on the internet, or is that us with a failed communication strategy or value proposition strategy? Which do you think it is more of, Nicole?
The expectation, the communication.
Right. I mean, I say that there are some, right? There's always like that 2% rule. 2%, no matter what you do, are going to be, obstinate, not want to do it. But I think a lot of them, it's an educational communication process, right? And if somebody says, I don't want to sign a buyer agency agreement, I would say, all right, that's interesting. Why would you say that, Nicole? And I might say something like, look, I may not be the right agent for you, but would you mind if I took a minute to demonstrate what a buyer agent could do for you and how that could benefit you, right? And I did the takeaway before. I said, hey, I might not be the right one for you, but can I take a moment and share with you what you want to look for when you're hiring a buyer's agent?
Right. It may not be me. I may not be the person for you, but this
right.
is
So that's something that I think, we all ought to make a little mental note or write it down, because when I co-chair a listing opportunity with somebody and, they want to misprice a property is a perfect example, right? I might say, Mr. Garver, if you interviewed every agent in Morris County and you found the best agent with the best marketing and you put your house on the market at $100,000 more than the perceived market value, I'm just curious, what would you do if you don't get offers and activity? That's a purely fair question, and I've completely deflected it away from them saying that it's not my marketing, it's not me. I'm saying, presume that you've done your homework and you found the best agent, whether it's me or somebody else. You hire that agent, you put it on the market at 100,000 more than the perceived market value. What would you do? I think that's totally fair. And if you're going to invest money in marketing and advertising, you ought to know the answer to that question, right?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously there's only one answer. I mean, you just have to bite the bullet and take it down to the price that it should have been originally.
Right. So then they would say, and I'd say, Robert, how long would you wait before you adjust the price?
Today.
So, okay. So no, but I mean, like, if Tracy's client is adamant that they want to list it at 675, right? And Tracy wants to have another tool in her toolbox, she could say, look, Robert, if you hired the best agent, whether it's me, you do all your homework and you determine who's the best agent with the best marketing, the best list to sale ratio, all the best stats, you hire them and you put it on at 675 and it doesn't sell. How long do you wait? 2 weeks, 30 days. I lower it to, maybe Terry's client is cheap. I lower it from 675 to 639, right? I still don't come down to the market value. Right, and say, okay, now after 14 days and it doesn't sell and somebody comes and looks at it, if they're interested, where do you expect that offer to be once they see you just cut the price 30 grand, right? And you just ask them better questions.
Right.
Like, that's part of the game. I mean, I don't mean that this is a game, this is a career, but part of the way to engage with people is to continually find ways to demonstrate the value without explaining it to them. It's asking them questions so they can self-discover, right? You want to, make them feel important. Then you want to ask questions that lead them to the right outcome. And if they feel like we're desperate to get that listing and we'll do anything, they can sense that, right? If they're, if they know that you're asking them questions to help them make the right choice, I don't care who they list it with. If they list it $75,000 more, the property is going to sit. They're going to get less money for it, right? And it's not a really great strategy. We all know this. So we just need to have the right strategy, because sometimes I feel like if I keep trying to use logic, Robert, and keep explaining, well, here's all the comps and it's not worth that, right? All I'm doing is I'm agitating them.
Yes, I agree with you.
So with buyers, the same thing. Like, buyers seem to think that we're all the same. We're all vanilla. Like, my offer of, especially if it's a cash offer, 500,000 cash offer, but, Jason might not have seen it because it went into his spam and he never called them and you just sent it as an email, right? Buyers don't know that that's how the business is done, right?
Yeah.
And if you send in, here's a perfect example. You send in a cash offer with a quick closing, right? And you're like, hey, my buyer's willing to close quickly, even though they don't need to, just to incentivize the seller, right? And then the seller's like, I don't know if I want to take this because I have to close too soon, right? That's
Right.
completely possible, right? You're just
Yes.
assuming the seller wants to close quickly. That seller may say, hey, I really want a 45 to 60-day closing, but your damn offer said I have to close in 15 days.
Whatever, yeah.
Right. I want to spend Labor Day here. So that's where the communication part really comes apart. And if we can find ways to communicate better, and another magic sentence is, hey, that's interesting. Why would you say that? I would write that down when somebody says something. Terry, I don't want to pay any buyer agent commission. That's really interesting. Why would you say that, Terry? And what would they say?
Because I'm cheap.
Right, they'd say, because I want to save money. I set you up, and I say, oh, okay. So Terry, I'm just curious, if somebody was willing to pay $50,000 over somebody without a commission, and you only had to pay $21,000 to their agent, would you take that extra $29,000, or would you still say, no, I'm not going to pay a commission?
Precisely.
But isn't that a really practical way of getting out of that? I'm not going to pay a buyer's agent.
And also you're not being defensive, or trying to prove your value. You're letting them answer the question.
Yeah. So Nicole, are you, I just want to be clear. If somebody comes with an offer 50,000 more and asks for a $21,000 commission, are you going to accept the offer 50,000 less? And that person would probably say, wait, no, of course I wouldn't. I'm okay. So then would you give me permission to tell them to submit their commission request with the offer so we can evaluate the entirety of the proposal?
Absolutely.
Right. And Terry, maybe your client might be the 1 in 50 that says, I'm absolutely not paying a buyer agent commission, right? And they're not logical. But I think if you did it the way that I just said, I think most sellers would agree to be open for compensation, correct?
Exactly.
And it's not as big of a deal as it appeared to be when she made the demand on the phone call, right? Hey, I'm not going to pay a buyer agent commission. So part of this is enjoying the challenge and the obstacles and the objections that people put up, because we've thought about it in advance and exactly how we're going to address it, right? Because it would really be a bad idea, Terry, to limit it to no buyer's agent commissions, in my opinion. So by phrasing it that way, and we're going to hope you come next week and tell us how that worked out. Right?
Maybe.
My ear, is it Sunday you're doing the appointment?
I'm not telling you.
So one day this weekend, my ears are going to be buzzing. I'm like, I wonder how Terry's doing. And she's going to be in that appointment using my words.
Terry, if you want to role play with somebody, or if you want to role play with me about this, I think it could help, because I think
why don't you fly down and do it with me, Rob?
I'm here now. You want me to stay an extra day?
I'll pay your airfare.
All right. So look, I know I didn't cover. I'm gonna take the attachment. I'm gonna put some more of the language that I recommend, or some extra tools that you can use. And if you just embrace it, you're like, hey, I expect these to come. I know how I'm going to answer them. And I'm also okay if I don't win, because there will be some times that you don't win. But overall, if you have this energy that you put out, that I just want to help, ask you questions to get you to make the right decision, you're going to be fine. And, the commission price that they pay, like some of us have it in their mind that they don't want to pay more than, 2%, right? And, I was on with one of our top teams, top 5 teams in the company. And a week ago, he asked me to talk to his team on his weekly Zoom meeting. And the premise was, 40% of the team members were getting buyer agents commissions of below 2.5%. And they were taking listings between 2 to 2.5. and the rest of the team was able to hold the line on commission. And the people who were charging less were saying that their clients were not willing to pay it, right? And my team leader said, this can't really be possible. Like, how can this one group attract people that are cheap and this other group get people that are reasonable, right? And when you look at more than 10 or 15 closings, and you see a pattern, it's like if you've been divorced 11 times, you might want to look in the mirror and say, maybe it's me, not the customer, right? And that was the premise. And he said, I wanted them to hear it from another voice. And I really believe that a lot of the times if it's in our head, it becomes our own reality either way, right? Because you can't attract all people asking for a discount, right? I mean, I had an agent in Westfield with Maryland knows, I'm not going to mention the name, but every single time that he took a listing, he's like, if I sell it myself, I'll knock 1% off, right? And I had the conversation with him. And I'm like, do you really need to do that? You've already got the listing signed and you're doing both ends of the deal. Why would you do that? Right. And he stopped doing it. And like nobody ever asked. It was like that never occurred anymore because he just put that out as like icing on the cake or a cherry on top after the listing was already done. Why would you do that? Does that make sense? So anyway, Terry, we're all going to be waiting for next week. And I appreciate everybody coming on. I hope I gave you a little bit of a confidence boost and a few more tools in your toolbox for working with these buyers and sellers.
Rob, just 1 second. I want to just let everybody know in Dallas, Nicole and I are coming in Sunday, Monday, and we're hosting an event at Ellen Gomez's listing in Bentry Royal on Tuesday night. So if you're in Dallas, we'd love to see you Tuesday night, and we'll be in the office to go over a number of things during the week till Thursday. So you guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you.
Wait, I actually have one more PSA if you can stay on. One is in New Jersey, we now have gotten our fourth fair housing investigation with testers.
Oh.
Okay, and what they're doing is they're calling on rentals. And I would imagine that this law is universal across most states, but the most recent ones, they called in twice. They said, hey, I have a tenant with a criminal record. I just wanted to see if we should still bother applying or can we see the property, right? And the agent said, yes, we can make an appointment, but you need to fill out an application first, right? They called back 2 days later. They said, hey, I have somebody that would like to see the property. Can I see it? They said, yes, you need to fill out a application. The tester called back and said, hey, my client doesn't have time to fill it out. Can we get in there today? And the agent said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a complaint from the New Jersey Attorney General for fair housing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had other complaints where it was based on, do you accept Section 8?
Yeah.
And they said the property, the property is not Section 8 approved or what, because the agent was seriously concerned with the inspection, but wound up getting into a violation situation.
That happened in Florida too, that Section 8 thing.
So I just wanted to put everybody on high alert that, and Sue, you want to comment?
I want to comment for David to be prepared for the heat and the humidity. We're going to be 101 and then 103 and then 102 on the days that you're going to be here.
We're ready. We're ready. We got a lot of heat here in Florida, so we're ready.
Okay.
If you're doing rentals, be prepared for the heat from the testers.
Yes.
There's about 105 in the testing community, but in all honesty, I feel like it was borderline unfair, but with regard to the criminal background, and Donna and I were talking, and like if somebody says I have a criminal background, and you're going to show that property by yourself, I tell you what, I got a lot of mixed feelings about that, and I know some areas have this program called Forewarn, and you got to put your safety first, and maybe an inconvenience, but bring somebody with you, and just know that there might be setups. Kathy Moran, have you heard any of this? I know you're connected or friend with the state.
We hear a lot about testers being out there and a lot of people being so-called fined. So yeah, everybody be careful.
Well, it would be helpful to have something put out, like how should we respond to these questions if we get these?
Yes, I mean we do a lot of training in New Jersey, and unfortunately, I don't see them. I didn't see this one as being that egregious. It was just she did say you need to fill out an application both times, but then they were like, "Oh, can we get in before they fill out the application?" That little indiscretion is now causing a big problem for us. So. I just want everybody not to have to learn that directly and just put your radar up. And I think the criminal thing is particularly a New Jersey thing. In Missouri, do you need, if somebody has a criminal record, can a landlord discriminate on that?
Yeah, the landlord can discriminate on anything they want.
Right.
Real estate agent cannot.
Proceed with caution with rentals, okay, everybody, and have a great weekend. And Terry, we look forward to hearing your story regardless. Bye, everybody. Good luck.
Have a
Good luck. Bye-bye.
You got it, Terry.
Bye.